Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and here's a quick model railway update. Progress has been a little bit slow lately, but I've begun adding track to the centre of the layout for industries and so forth. Initially my plan was to have the main structures ready before doing this, but after a bit of thinking, that's not the case anymore. It's going to take a while to find buildings that I actually like the look of, and then buy them and build them. So, track goes in first. Part of the track laying, at least with FlexTrack, is removing sleepers so that you can get the track joiners on, and clearly that leaves these big gaps, which is not all that realistic for most railways. You might say, "You removed too many sleepers, Herbert!" And that might be the case, but shut up. I've got these gaps anyway, and now it's time to fix that. They're not all huge gaps, but they're all fairly noticeable, and none of them look good. The only area that I'm not concerned about, or at least not currently concerned about, is where the two boards join. I am still figuring out how I'm going to cover that, either a road or a bridge, with a road on it. That's something for future Herbert to worry about though. Present Herbert has these, Peco joiner sleepers, or ties for you Americans. These are wooden sleepers, suitable for code 80 or code 55 like I'm using. There is also a concrete version if that's more your speed. You get 3 little sprues with 8 sleepers each, and, well, they look like sleepers. Almost the same as the ones you'd find on FlexTrack. "Why don't you just use the ones you've cut off the FlexTrack?" I hear you say. Well, you could if you wanted, though a lot of them do get damaged while being removed. Unless you remove them delicately, I guess, which I have not been doing. Also, the way they are shaped is different. You can see the replacement sleepers have a big rectangular opening for the rails, and that will also fit over track joiners. The sleepers from FlexTrack don't have that. The opening there is the same shape as the rail, which obviously makes sense. It holds the track in gauge, and you might think that's important, and that's because it is. But that also means you can't really just slot it back onto the rail. You could obviously cut those sleepers and make them fit, and that's perfectly fine if that's how you want to spend your time. Personally, I'd prefer not to. The Peco joiner sleepers are quicker and less effort. Also, they're only a couple of dollars a box, so they make sense to me. The installation is simple, and probably pretty obvious. First, you work out how many sleepers you'll need, and for this I used a piece of FlexTrack as a sort of guide. You might not get the spacing exactly the same as the FlexTrack, but I would say in a lot of cases, close enough is good enough. I put down some PVA glue, possibly a bit too much, and you might prefer to glue afterwards to minimize mess. Then, you can simply slide the sleepers in under the rails. It works best if you can slide them in on their side, so the spikes molded into the tops and the openings don't catch on your rails. It did take a little bit of kajiggering, but it's not very difficult at all. This is clearly an area where using a foam roadbed is beneficial. I don't know if you could do this with cork, or if you laid your track directly onto the board. You may have to install these as you're laying the track, which I would imagine is just about as easy as doing it this way. I nudged the sleepers so the spacing is relatively even, and they're fairly straight. It is worth noting that there's a bit of play here, which is obviously because the opening is wider than the rails, which does make sense. You can make the gap between the plastic and metal a little bit less obvious by pushing the sleepers against the rail on the side you'll be viewing from the most. The gap on the other side will be worse, but it isn't much of a gap, and in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's going to be all that noticeable anyway. This process was a little bit more time consuming than I had originally anticipated it would be, because it does take some effort and a bit of care to slide these under the rails. If you're too rough, they'll bend where the plastic is thinnest, which is clearly under the rail gaps. So it's not difficult, it's just a bit time consuming. But I guess that's why a hobby is also called a pastime. As is quite often the case, it pays to pay attention to what you're doing, so keep an eye on the sleepers you've already put down. If you're doing a bunch of them in the same area, it's quite easy to bump them out of place. "Oh, thanks for the advice, Captain Obvious!" You're welcome. Installing these around points is pretty much the same as anywhere else. You've just got to also deal with the possibility of sleepers interfering with each other where the rails converge. You can either place them so they sort of go next to each other, rather than trying to have 2 sleepers occupying the same place, which, as I understand it, violates the laws of physics. Or you could cut the ends off so they don't interfere with each other. I'm sure in these situations a real railway would just use a longer sleeper to go under all the rails, but believe it or not, this is not a real railway. I chose to cut probably about 1.5 millimeters from the sleeper on this diverging line here, and it seems to have worked pretty well. Or at least it's kind of hard to tell that it's been cut, and if it is noticeable, maybe we can just say it's been damaged. Anyway, that's about it. It's not much, but it does make a big difference in the way the track looks. This isn't really something I'd anticipated I would need when I started my railway, but boy am I glad I saw these before I tried to reuse the sleepers I'd cut off the flex track. They're a real time saver. The next step is to finish laying and wiring the track for the sidings, and then it's time to figure out painting the track. I had also hoped to at least start sticking down some foam by now, but XPS foam board seems all but impossible to find in Australia, so I'm either going to be forking over a ton of cash for it, or finding an alternative, but I suppose that's a problem for future Herbert to worry about. Sucks to be that guy. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comments section below. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell here on YouTube for reasons. And if you'd like to see my videos a bit early before there's any ads, consider becoming a patron. You can find links to Patreon and all of my other things like Discord and social media in the description below. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.